It's the year 2001. I'm heading to the local video rental store to pick up one video game and one movie. The game, Digimon World on the PlayStation. The movie, the Digimon movie. So let's look back on various releases from the Digimon franchise that gets me all nostalgic as we celebrate Odaiba Day 2023 and the fact that the English release of Digimon Adventure has its 24th anniversary in August as well. Now, this is a different kind of Digimon review video where I'm going to be explaining how I got into the Digimon franchise and what kept me in the franchise and the Digimon community all through that time. So don't just click away just yet, because I'd love to hear about what your entry to the franchise of Digimon was and what important memories and close to the heart held memories that you have. So be it you're just a new fan who just got into the franchise with the Vital Bracelet and Ghost game, or if you're a fan from the start of the franchise with Digimon Adventure and the Digital Monster Virtual Pet. So this is how I got into the franchise, but I'd love to hear how you got into it as well. So back in the year 2000, Digimon Virtual Pets had more or less just been released in Australia, and the fad had hit my primary school pretty hard. And finally, after nagging my parents for what felt like an honest eternity, I finally was given my first ever virtual pet, the Digimon version 2. Now, at this point, and the same applied to a lot of the other people in my year level at primary school, or in my friend group as well, we had no idea about the Digimon anime, nor about Tamagotchi or any other virtual pet releases, for that matter. In fact, we didn't even know the Digimon names except for what a quick Google search could muster. So a lot of them were given these kind of nicknames like Dog, or Alien, or Fireman, and my personal favourite, because we were like 7 years old and this was peak humour, was Sunomon, who was just called Dickhead. I did not like this name, however. I called mine Cutie. I felt like that was kind of a mean name to call something that was essentially our pet, and I didn't have a pet at the time, so I was kind of like, that's cruel. So I called my Sunomon Cutie. I also have a fairly fond memory of, and this was fairly early on when I got my first Digimon. We went on holidays somewhere. I think it might have been to New Zealand or something. But anyway, so I had my Digimon, and I got separated from my parents. And I remember walking around like a park or a fountain, and I was starting to get a little bit worked up because I was like 7, I think, or maybe 8. And I was getting a little bit worked up, and I was about to cry. And all of a sudden, my Digimon starts doing beeping noises, and my Gabumon was evolving into Angemon, and I feel like this was one of the first times my Digimon actually evolved, so this was like a really memorable moment in my head, and I felt like Angemon had come to save me because I was getting worked up, and then I pretty soon after found my parents. They were probably like only a few meters away. I was kind of young, so they probably did have me in eyeshot at the very least. I also have another memory. I was in a hospital for some treatment for my eyes or some tests or something, and I found someone else who had a Digimon, and they had a Lekmon on theirs. Now, I never changed up how I looked after my Digimon at this time, and any advice online was kind of hard to find. There were a lot of incorrect bits of information put online, like how to get skull shooting Teddymon, but I couldn't actually find any legitimate guides or advice on how to get my Digimon to evolve. So I always took the exact same care of my Digimon, so I only ever got Gabumon and Angemon, and of course the baby forms as well, Punimon and Sunomon. But this kid had an Elecmon, which I'd never seen before. And I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. So I was really impressed. We battled, and I feel like we both like won equal amounts. But that's also another pretty great memory that I have of these virtual pets. So, at the time I didn't know much about Digimon at all. But or Tamagotchis for that matter. In fact, later on, I would learn about the existence of Tamagotchi from a board game that some kid brought into school on the last day, and then also a guidebook in the public library. And flicking through both, I was like, hey, this reminds me a lot of Digimon. But it didn't really connect that Tamagotchi was by the same company, yet alone the fact that Tamagotchi started Digimon's lifespan, as Digimon was a spin-off from the original Tamagotchi release. So a few weeks after the initial fad of the Digimon virtual pets kind of rolled through, I was watching cartoons on Cheese TV, which was on Channel 10 in the mornings, and it aired a bunch of cartoons and anime like Dragon Ball and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and Digimon. So I was watching this one morning, and all of a sudden, Digimon came on. And I didn't know that there was an anime for this show, so I watched it, and it was almost the end of the original airing of Digimon Adventure. It was the Puppetmon episode with the Puppetmon's house episode. So I was like, oh my gosh, there is an anime for this. And of course, I went to school and I told everyone, and everyone was like, what, there's an anime? Or rather, we didn't really know the terms of anime at the time. So we're like, what, there's a cartoon, there's a TV show? Like, we were really just amazed by the idea that there could be a show for this virtual pet that we all loved. So, and then from then on, I watched the anime, and then in terms of the Tamagotchi releases, I didn't own my own Tamagotchi until 2005, but at least I made the connection that the Digimon anime existed. So I continued watching from then, and I watched all of 02 in its initial airing, and even got a red D3 for Christmas one year, so that was really exciting. And also confusing, because I swear that the official instructions that came packaged with my red Digivice, which is a version 1 D3, was actually for the second version of the D3, because it mentioned all these features like the baby villages that weren't in the first version but are in the second version, and rescuing Adventure 1999 Digimon. So I was very confused that a lot of the features didn't quite seem accurate. And then when the small amount of times that I got internet access, I googled it, and I could only find instructions, interesting enough, for the Japanese version, not the version that I had. So doubly confusing learning that the English versions and the Japanese versions weren't the same at that point. So I went on to watch 02 in its original airing, and then around this time I probably borrowed the Digimon movie and Digimon World from the local Video Easy so many times it would have just been cheaper for my parents to just buy me both, like, outright, but I never got that far in Digimon World and only ever got Numamon. Then, when Digimon Tamers was released, I thought that it was a sequel to 02 because Kari's voice actor returned to be a teacher, and the epilogue of 02 had her end up being a kindergarten teacher, so pretty similar career path. And then Yolei's voice actor also came back and was somebody who fittingly worked in tech when that was kind of Yolei's thing, had a similar hair colour, and so I just thought that it was a sequel. And I also thought Yamaki was TK grown up, so I was very confused that seems a bit of a character jump. So I was very confused with the first few episodes, and I never actually finished Tamers because Tamers in Australia only seemed to air half of the first half of the series and never ever finished it. So I didn't finish Tamers until much later on, so I don't really have that much nostalgia for the series. A lot of people do, but I don't have that much nostalgia because I didn't watch it that much. I did, however, want the D-Power toy. I thought that it was really cool. And again, after nagging my parents for the D-Power toy, I convinced them to buy me one, but unfortunately, by the time I actually was successful in convincing them to buy me one, unfortunately, the D-Powers were no longer sold, and I instead got a Detector version 1, which I probably loved more than I would have actually loved the D-Power. I had a lot of fun with the Detector version 1, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it and everything about the Detector in general. And then another time I had a fairly lengthy round of vaccinations, so needles and injections, which I'm kind of a little bit scared of needles, so I needed to be coerced into getting them, and I still do, but I coerce myself. I'm like, okay, I get this vaccination, I get my favourite takeout for dinner. So that's kind of like a thing. So I was apparently brave, so I got an early birthday present, and that was my very much beloved Digimon World 2003, which again is a huge piece of nostalgia for me. And similar to me getting the detector, I wanted originally just Digimon World, the first one. But by the time this happened, which was obviously a few years later, obviously Digimon World no longer sold, so I got Digimon World 2003, which again, I probably loved more than I would have loved Digimon World in general. I just really loved Digimon World 2003. So ever since these moments that I've mentioned in this video, I've been completely hooked. And then, of course, there was the fact that when I was a teenager, I was too cool for the franchise, but I still remained hooked. So, ever since then, big fan of Digimon, and that's kind of why it's very important to me as a franchise. So, those are my thoughts about what Digimon is to me, and why I love Digimon. And I apologise for my dogs barking in the background. They've just decided that it's time to play, which is great for them. Love them very much. So like this video for my dogs, and also for Digimon in general, and leave a comment. I'd love to see and hear how you got into the franchise of Digimon and what's kept you going along, how long you've been a fan for. It doesn't matter if you've been a fan for the entirety of the franchise's life, or if you're a new fan, doesn't matter, all answers are valid. Let me know in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbours. And of course, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!